Ever had a conversation with yourself? Did you answer back? Don't worry, I'm not looking to have anyone committed. But we do that, don't we, from time to time? We go through these kind of mental debates in our head when we're making decisions, when we're trying to work out maybe some of our problems, or in some cases when your kindergartner teacher puts you in the corner because you talk too much. That's a story for another time. But what we're doing is we're weighing our options, right? We're thinking about the pros and cons of whatever we might be doing. Should I do this? How is this going to turn out if I do or don't? How much is this going to cost? And sometimes that decision can be influenced by past experiences, the situation we find ourselves in, our current situation, our emotions. Sometimes we can even be influenced by the sin and the desire in our lives. Now, I like to think in images of cartoons. And I blame that on Saturday mornings watching Looney Tunes and Scooby-Doo. It rotted my brain. But have you ever wondered what those mental conversations look like? I mean, who are we really talking to anyway? And sometimes, those debates that we have can get pretty intense. And perhaps they may even look a little bit like this.
Good morning, church. I know you all checked out that connection wall, but just a reminder, if you look on the screen, we will be having this awesome event, and I'll be passing around this clipboard, so don't forget to sign up.
Are you kidding me? You don't think that I'm busy enough?
Oh no, no one will want me to help. I don't think anyone even likes me.
Yay!
I don't know about all of this. What if something goes wrong? What if no one shows up?
I am!
No, I don't help with those types of events. It's so beneath.
Why would they even think that this was a good idea? I mean, did you see who's running this event? Wow, I can't believe this.
This will be great. We could!
Oh man, if I come, I won't add any value.
Hey, this will!
Hey, okay, let's stop there. I'm not really sure whose head we're looking at right now, whose story we're hearing, but I'm glad I'm not part of that conversation. And the skit they're doing is based on a cartoon called Inside Out, and those are some of the characters that you would see as a girl is dealing with some tough decisions. And maybe you've heard the phrase, attitude is everything, or something along those lines. I'm not sure when it first appeared or when it came out, but I have a pretty good idea that it's older than any of us. But if we think about it, there's some truth to that, isn't there? Attitude makes a difference. In fact, it can make a huge difference. It affects how we approach things, the way we look at life, our outlook, the choices that we make. Believe it or not, our attitude can affect our health, and it can even affect our relationship with God. Now, reading this morning, we heard Jesus telling a group of people that he was the bread of life. And that sounds kind of weird, right? We don't hear that description too often about people. So I want to take some time this morning to unpack that a little bit and talk about what that means. Over the past few weeks, we've been looking at some rather unusual statements that Jesus makes, what we call his I am statements. And we found them in the book of John. There are times when Jesus came up with this rather unique connection between himself and us, and between himself and God. And so we've been looking at some of the different things that he said. So far, we've talked about when Jesus told the people that he was the way, the truth, and the life. Last week, we talked where Jesus said that he was the good shepherd. So if we want to better understand what Jesus is talking about, we always have to go back to Scripture, right? Well, today we have to go way back. We have to go all the way to Moses and the Israelites. God had sent Moses to Egypt to free the people that were held captive there as slaves. And you might remember Charlton Heston's line of, "Let my people go." Actually, I don't know how he said it, but we can just use our imagination, right? But that's what Moses was sent there to do, to tell Pharaoh, let his people go. But Pharaoh was very hard-hearted, and he was stubborn, and he wouldn't do it. It took a lot of very bad plagues, bad things happening, until finally he said, okay, take the people and go. And some scholars say there could have been well over 2 million people that day that Moses led out of Egypt. So Moses takes these people out of Egypt into the desert. And all they could bring with them was what they could carry, whatever they could load up the time when they were there and bring it with them into the desert. They had to rely on God to provide for everything else. And it was a great deal for them. God would provide protection He gave them freedom. He would give them their provisions, whatever it was that they needed. And he promised that he was taking them to a new land that was filled with blessings they couldn't begin to comprehend. So everything was great for a while. Everyone was happy. This was wonderful. We were free. We're moving along. And when they were hungry, God gave them manna. He provided from heaven for them. When they were thirsty, he gave them good water to drink. But one day, they had gone on this difficult trek through the wilderness. And the people began to complain. Scripture tells us this is what they said. If only we would have meat to eat. My kingdom for meat. We remember the fish that we ate in Egypt. Oh, it was so good. At no cost even. And the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, oh, the garlic. It was wonderful. But now we've lost our appetite because all we get is this manna every single day. Now remember, they had a lot to be thankful for, right? But rather than look at it that way, they said, we'd rather go back to Egypt. We'd rather be slaves to a place where we were beaten, abused, mishandled, hated, just so long as we don't have to eat this manna anymore. You see, the Israelites were looking at things from the wrong perspective. Rather than seeing the blessings and the gifts that God had given them, all they saw was the negative. And we read a little later in the story that God wasn't very happy with them. In fact, not a little bit. And you know, sometimes we can fall into that situation too. Every now and then, maybe we can see things in the wrong light. And I have to wonder, do you think when we do that, do you think God gets upset about it? Do you think that he looks at our attitudes every once in a while and says, you know, you're looking at things a little wrong? Now, I'm only speaking for myself here, but I know my attitude at times isn't the best. There are times when I'm not happy with the things that I've done or the way things have turned out, the way my decisions have kind of led me in a path that I don't want to be on. And sometimes I realize it before I do something stupid. Not very often. And other times, you know, it's not so much. I need someone to gently remind me, hey, knock it off. You know, stop thinking that way. Stop doing those things. But attitude sure can make a difference on how we see things. St. Paul's Cathedral, it's a beautiful place. You've probably maybe seen it on social media. Maybe you've seen it on TV when they've had different things going on there. But dignitaries, royalty, they have weddings there and funerals. So whenever something happens in the London area that's a big deal, usually takes place there. Well, after a terrible fire, most of London had been destroyed. And they went to this famed architect named Christopher Wren. And they said, we want you to rebuild things. We want you to redesign and put back together this cathedral that was the centerpiece of London. And it was a huge undertaking. It took tons of people to do it, a lot of time. So Christopher Wren, he's overseeing this project. And a journalist had this idea or this thought, I wonder how people picture what they're doing. You know, because it's such a monumental task. I wonder how they look at it. So we asked 3 different stonemasons what they thought of the job they were doing. The first one said, I'm making a lousy 10 cents a day cutting stone. This was a few hundred years ago, so it was before minimum wage kicked in. And the second person said, I don't know. I get up in the morning, I cut stone. I go to bed, I get up in the morning, I do the same thing again. Every day is the same. The third person gave a different answer. When he was asked, he said, I'm helping Sir Christopher Wren, and we're building one of London's most fantastic cathedrals. You see, even though they were all doing exactly the same job, perspective and attitude made all the difference. So sometimes as we look at life, perspective can change the way we see things. I came across another story that was kind of funny, another example that I wanted to share with you. And it's funny because I can picture myself doing this. So as I tell the story, just picture me doing it. There was a certain parts manager for a small electronics shop. And he placed an order for part 669. He needed something from the factory. It was a replacement switch for a machine that a customer had ordered. But when he received the package, he noticed someone had sent him part 699. Unbelievable. One job to do. Have you ever received something that you didn't order, or maybe it was the wrong order? Yes, Amazon special. So anyway, the guy's furious at this factory, the place that he ordered. He said, you're so incompetent. How could you do that? I had one order. So he promptly sent the package back with a letter in there just giving them a piece of his mind. He said, I asked for part 669, not 699. Let's get it right this time. Less than a week later, he received the same part back with a letter that had 4 small words on it. Turn the box over. 669. I laughed because I could have done that. It's a cute illustration, though, but it makes a good point, doesn't it? The way we might see something could be a little different than it actually is. So if we go back to our story from our reading today, Jesus had fed a group of people, a large group of people. He had fed them bread and fish, and they were full. This was good. It was great food. But rather than see the miraculous sign that pointed to the Messiah that was there right before their eyes, they just wanted another meal. They said, this was good. Can we have some more of that fish and bread? And so that's why Jesus had to say the things he did. He said, no, you're looking at this all wrong. I want you to see the bigger picture here. It's not about food that's here today and gone tomorrow. He wanted them to see what he was offering, and it was something so much more. A bread that would last forever, that would feed their soul. But a lot of people, they weren't interested in that. They were focused on, I want my food, I want my bread, I want my fish today. They were only focused on one side or one aspect. And nothing Jesus said would change how they were looking at things, wouldn't change their attitude. So again, do you think that sometimes Jesus wants us to change our attitudes? Can we become so focused on one particular side or aspect or view that we can't see what Jesus really wants us to see? Let me give you an example. Scripture tells us that this is the day the Lord has made, right? And then it goes on to say, let us, does anybody know how the rest of it goes? Rejoice and be glad in it, absolutely. First thing I said when I walked outside this morning was, where's my coat? I hate the cold. When is this going to stop? I wasn't exactly rejoicing, was I? Or how about last week when we had all that snow? Was anybody out there rejoicing as they shoveled it? I just love the snow. This is so wonderful as my back is breaking. It doesn't happen, right? Have you ever looked at something that way, though, before? Maybe seen the negative before you see the positive? It's easy to do. And the crazy thing is the more we practice doing that, the easier it becomes. This food is terrible. All it does is rain. It's too cold in the wintertime. Oh, it's too hot in the summertime. My phone is ringing constantly. I can't get a second of peace. The kids are driving me crazy. I'm tired of this job, this homework. I'm tired of getting up early. I'm sure I missed a few in there, right? But you get what I mean. There's no shortage of things that we can complain about. But what if we looked at it from a different perspective? Maybe it's not what we expected, but thank God we have food on the table, something to eat. Thank God it's raining or snowing, because a few months from now, those plants are going to need the water. We're going to need the water if we want to go out in our boats, right? I'm so blessed that people want to call me. I'm blessed that I have a phone that I can answer their calls on, because now maybe I have an opportunity to tell people that I love them. I can tell them about Jesus, or maybe even just that it's going to be okay. You get the idea, right? We can look for the negative. That's easy. We can do that all day long. Or we can choose to look for the blessing that's underneath. That's a choice that we have to make every single day. It's the same when it comes to God. It's the same problem the Israelites had to deal with. It's the same way the people reacted when Jesus had fed them. We can be thankful. We can realize that God has blessed us, that He has done wonderful things for us, that He loves us, He's protecting us, He's caring for us. I mean, maybe it's not in exactly the way we thought it was going to be. Or we can think, for the love of God, please don't give me any more manna. I just want some meat. I want you to do things my way, God. I want things to turn out the way I expect them. That's something we have to think about. Like I said, it's a choice. how we see things, how we want to look at things. But the right attitude can make all the difference. And now maybe you're thinking, yeah, but I did that Facebook poll, the Disney one, and it came back saying I was Eeyore. How can I change that around? If that's the case, I just want to let you know it's okay. We all have our Eeyore moments from now and then. But that's why we need to identify what is going on. What's making us feel this way in the first place? What's the underlying thing that we're struggling with? Maybe it's jealousy. We're jealous of a position that someone has got that we thought we deserved. Maybe we feel like we've been treated unfairly. What are we struggling with? Do we start to see things from that perspective? Maybe we've been procrastinating and we keep putting things off. Is it possible that we could use our time a little more wisely and that would change how we see the world around us? Is it fear or worry that's holding us back? Have you heard too many times, well, you're just not good enough to be able to do that? Have you been burned one too many times by someone that was close to you? Whatever the situation is, finding the root of our feelings helps us work towards a solution. Sometimes as we look at a glass, we see that it's half empty rather than seeing it in any other way. But maybe it's not about how much is in there, but it's about which glass we choose to use. See, perspective changes everything. The most important thing that we can do and should do is to look to God for help. Ask Him to help us see things a little differently. Sometimes we can't make out the good because we've spent so much time looking at the negative. And so we see a glass that's half empty rather than the potential that's there. God promises to always be by us, always be on our side, to never leave us, to never abandon us. He loves us, He protects us, and He wants what's best for us. It's just that sometimes we need help to understand and to see that. We need His vision to see things a little clearer. And now, I'm hoping that this doesn't come as a surprise to you, but God never starts the day by saying, how am I going to screw up their day today? How am I going to make them completely miserable? I've been working all night on this, and I think I've got it. That's not how God is. That's not who He is. But He may give us an opportunity to grow. He may stretch us a little more than we're willing to bend. But He wants us to rely on Him. He wants us to trust Him. You see, He might present us with an opportunity that causes us to step out of our comfort zone, our convenience zone. And here's the thing, the more we practice trusting in God, listening to God, putting our faith in Him, and realizing that He loves us, the more we'll start to see things a little differently. The Apostle Paul tells us to put off the former way of doing things and renew ourselves with a new attitude. Renew our minds. And it starts by remembering how blessed we really are. And that's even on the worst day. We can say we're blessed because we know that Jesus still loves us, that He still cares about us, that He still paid the price to set us free. And nothing we do is going to change that. So having the right attitude, a positive attitude, if you will, helps us realize all that God has given us, even in the little things. You see, when we look at life from that perspective, at how blessed we are, even in the midst of things that don't seem all that great, we'll begin to see all the opportunities that God gives us to be a blessing to other people. So let's see what can happen when we look at things from a different perspective.
Good morning, church. I know you all checked out that connection wall, but we have an amazing event coming up, as you can see on the screen. I'll be passing around this clipboard, so make sure you sign up.
Are you kidding me? You don't think that I'm busy enough?
Oh no, no one will want me to help. I don't even think anyone likes me.
Yay! I don't know about all of this. What if something goes wrong? What if no one shows up?
No, I don't help with those types of events. That's so...
Guys, listen! This will be amazing. We have the opportunity to make a difference. It's okay if it isn't perfect. It's okay if you get nervous. God will be with us, and God calls us to do our part. This will be great, and everyone will add value. Let's do this.
Okay, Joy. guess I can try to move my schedule around.
I could try, I suppose.
Well, if you'll all be there, maybe you can help me.
As long as I don't have to wait anything.
See, we can do this together with the help of God. We just have to have the right attitude and be ready for whatever God calls us to do.